Hello, it's Anna and Sophie from Soundyard here. We make Chris Skinner's Countryside podcast, and we've got something very exciting to share with you. We have a new service that's being launched, and it's called Spoken Stories.
Spoken Stories is all about recording the voices and memories of your loved ones in outstanding quality, so they can be enjoyed for generations to come. For example, you know the story that Grandma tells that everyone in the family has heard before. Well, Spoken Stories is about getting those stories down and preserving them for your family history. Spoken Stories is about gifting someone the time to capture these personalities and unique voices.
We record your loved ones' tales, whether it's their whole life story so far or something more specific like a life-changing event. It is a gorgeous experience, and what you're left with is a beautiful monologue that really captures the essence of that person.
Think of it like an audio portrait, and take a listen to a snippet of this one from Diane's spoken story, recorded in her beautiful garden.
I was born in 1951 at Newmarket, and unfortunately I didn't see Mum for a year. I was looked after by a lovely nurse called Diane, my name, because my mum had TB when I was born. And so my mother never worked because with her problem with her, lungs, she had to go and have it sort of pumped up every so often. She used to do a lot of dressmaking, so she always made our clothes years ago. But yeah, she was a lovely mum, yeah, and Dad as well, yeah. That's very nice childhood I had, yeah, very nice. Yeah. I got married February the 16th, 1974. The weather was gorgeous. I ended up having to put on a big sort of T-shirt under my wedding dress I didn't need. I had a lovely one of those transparent umbrellas in case it rained, and it was just a beautiful day. I think I'm always sort of quite cheerful. I mean, if I go down the Luke and deliver some eggs to somebody, I'll meet somebody and chat, and then Paul say, "Where have you been?" I said, "I've been chatting to people." That's just my way. That's just how I am. We've always lived here. We had this built in 1974. They put the footings down in February and we moved in the August. Years ago, I used to go around the village on a bike, and when I had Ian, he'd sit on the back. We live in a lovely area. We've got lovely neighbours. They help us all out, which you all do with neighbours, and that's very, very nice. And as I said to Paul, I'm hoping we can keep this place on until, well, I don't want to move from here until I go out in a brown box. I hope that's not too soon.
If you'd like more information about Spoken Stories and to take advantage of our special introductory offer, you can head to www.soundyard.org/spoken stories.
And keep listening after this episode with Chris, and you'll hear another example of a spoken story. It's a view of the world from a 6-year-old.
Morning, everybody. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. It's a bit of an overcast morning. There's a slight wind blowing. Been more rain overnight. And just starting the day off on the farm. Rat's in front of me. And we're just walking down to the farm duck pond because last night there was some new arrivals. Oh, one of the liveries has just arrived to look after their horse. Possibly one of the nurses. They start really early in the morning. And I'm just going down the farmyard and just see if we can see who arrived last night. No sign of them. Rat's with me, my demented terrier. He's wanting to go back and have join me for a cup of tea in a few minutes, but he's heading the wrong way. Come on, you terrier. Oh, some grey-lag geese have flown in overnight. They're feeding on the grass. 4 of them, all adults. Pigeons doing their dawn chorus behind me. And just looking round under the trees that surround the duck pond. Can't see them because last night... Oh, there go the greylags. And they're taking off. And I can't see their new arrivals. They were Egyptian geese, and they'd been nesting in a tree on the far side of High Ash Farm, and they've brought their offspring, which is rather late, so we're sort of past the middle of June, and I can't actually see where they've secreted themselves, but they are quite aggressive, so I'm a bit concerned for the goslings that I have, that there could be a bit of shenanigans later on. And they're quite noisy, the parents are, but I can't actually see. It's funny how you lose things in your own farmyard. I can't actually see where they are. I thought they'd entertain us a little bit. So, hear a song thrush singing way in the background, repeating its song 2 or 3 times over. There's one tree left, with branches coming quite close to the ground, but nothing underneath there. And I'm right up to the edge of the duck pond now, unless they've secreted themselves in the reeds here. No, can't see them. The mysteries of High Ash Farm. And some of those will be revealed later this morning. Matthew Gudgeon will be joining me. And we'll be looking at more of the wildflowers, especially the ones that enjoy this wet weather. So join us later on this morning for the latest edition of the Countryside Podcast with me, Chris Skinner, and Rat, who's... Oh, I don't know what that was. I heard a noise back further up the farmyard. Oh, that's those greylag. They've landed on the meadow. They didn't go very far. They took off. And they're making a nice dawn chorus sound for us. I thought we'd have Egyptian geese. It's the Norfolk motto, do different. We've got greylags. We've just found the Egyptian geese. Greylags one side of me, and it's just a good old Norfolk farmyard duck pond. And these parents, very proud, with 3 young Egyptian geese trailing on behind them, just out of the nest. And that's the noise Mum and Dad make all day.
Chris Skinner's Countryside Podcast with Matthew Gudgeon.
Always great to be back on High Ash Farm near Norwich in the company of farmer Chris Skinner on an overcast lunchtime, cool again for June. And we're looking around for Rat the Terrier. Chris, what's happened to him? Where's he gone?
Well, I think he's on the scent trail of some... Oh, he's coming running straight towards... This is Master's scent trail. He's tearing across the field.
He thought he'd lost you.
Yes.
Here
Hello,
he comes.
Ratty.
He is back.
He's back.
Hello.
Good boy. He has to be part of the Countryside podcast team, of course, and he's disappeared into the stinging nettles.
Well, that's what terriers do, isn't it?
That's what they do, yes, apart from rolling in fox poo. So he thinks it's his favourite perfume of all, and he thinks I love it, and then he has to have a bath afterwards.
So we're here under some very mature woodland here, and the stinging nettles as well, and the horse pasture. So what have we come to see?
Right, it's a special time of year, as it always is. Every week's a special time of year at High Ash Farm, and we've come to one of the lower spots of High Ash. It's an old meadow. It was reclaimed in back the 1960s by me. It was quite overgrown, and I've left all the trees on it, and also some pasture oaks as well. And these were just sticks when I left them. The one beside us here is a glorious English oak. It's up 60 odd feet now, and I don't think I can get my arms quite round the trunk. Another one over there, two beauties, and they're scattered all over the field, and it gives a kind of beautiful feel to the pasture.
It's like Parkland, isn't it? With these trees just teenagers, really, aren't they?
Yes, they certainly are. They'll probably make 300 or 400 years because they're in the right spot, and because we're low down on the farm, it is very wet here. And this is what they look like, Matthew, once they're so mature. Old and gnarled and up 70 or 80 feet and full of holes and broken off branches that hang out low. And look at that one over there, the huge branch the size of a tree going almost down to the ground over there. And that's where we're going to walk. We've got a little bit of walking to go to the spot where, well, it's called Trudging with Gudge, I think, because it's a bit of a trudge.
Okay.
Yes,
well, I'm up for a trudge, or what did they call that in the Falklands? A yomp.
A yomp. Anyway, oh, yes, so down the hill, there are the oaks right beside us, and much further, and those trees wouldn't be here. Can you feel the ground beginning to soften under your feet?
Very soft.
Yes. There
Yeah.
you go.
And on we go. Yes, the tree line finishes just about here, doesn't it? You can probably hear the squelching. Ah, yes, there's water appearing.
Yes.
We are wearing our Wellingtons.
Yes, so this is a very low, flat area. It's really prone to waterlogging, and we are now on High Ash's official bog. We are standing on water, but there's a layer of peaty soil over the top of it, and underneath us this is floating. And if you don't believe me, just stand there and I'll walk away from you. Just tell me.
Oh, yes.
Did the earth move for you?
Yes, Chris was bouncing up and down a few yards away, and I could feel the earth moving up and down here as well. So we're floating on just water.
On water. And I've just seen something very special. Just look in there. A beautiful
so
little male damselfly on some meadowsweet. Iridescent blue, wings folded up over the top of its back, right next to a plant which gives the game away as to where we are. You won't find this growing many places. It's called marsh thistle. It's a specialist of wet ground, and it grows up to a couple of metres tall, and it's on the way. Small little bright purple buds at the top of it. Just behind us is a fence, a small area of woodland fenced off to stop any cattle, which aren't here anymore, or the horses going through there, because it's too dangerous for them. And in the spring of 1948, the year before I was born, there was a big, really long, cold winter of 1947, and this froze, and the farm workers, together with my farmer, want some extra firewood, so they brought my father's E27N tractor down here, which was petrol paraffin, and they were pulling a tree out from the other side there, and the tractor didn't have tyres on it. It had what are called spud wheels. They were metal bands to replace the rubber tyres, and on them were metal spokes, if you like, and they were called spud wheels because when the wheels went over the ground, it left little holes every foot or so, about the size of your fist, and it gave the tractor extra grip. Anyway, the back end of the tractor went in, and it kind of bottomed out, it sumped out on the back of the tractor, and it was facing sort of the back end sunk in a bit. So the only thing to do was to ring the neighbour, who lived in Queen Anne Cottage on the other side. His name was Claude Cogman, and he came chugging down the next morning. And the farm workers, so there was lots of them working here at the farm when I was born, and they all told me the same story, that Claude Cogman, that was his name, brought the Field Marshal tractor down with a winch on the back. And when they arrived the next morning, the tractor had sunk halfway in. So he attached the cable to the front axle and started the Field Marshal up with the winch on the back. And he was parked right down the field there, close to where the old village cricket pitch was, over 100 metres away. And he started it up and started to pull the tractor out. But the tractor refused to move. The only thing that came was the front axle with the wheels on. And over the next 2 to 3 weeks, the tractor disappeared completely.
Oh, and it's down.
And it's still there. I still have kept the insurance claim. My father got £117, 6 shillings for it, minus £11 for second-hand front axle, and that was from Commercial Union, the local insurance company.
I should think they hated paying out, as insurance companies always do. So it's
Yes,
still there.
It's still there to this day, a complete tractor minus the front axle. So,
And the story really is to demonstrate just how bottomless this pit is.
It absolutely is. It's completely waterlogged, and of course it's been a wet spring, a very wet last winter, and it continues to be very unsettled at the moment here in Norfolk. But they say every cloud has a silver lining. We're just going to walk a little bit more through this squelch, this kind of black thing, and if I hear a little scream, I know you've gone through into the water layer.
You'll have to launch an insurance claim for me then.
Yes.
Am I covered by your dad's insurance
I don't think
policy?
so. I'm not sure the company's still there. But anyway, this is what you call delightful now. There's a smattering of, well, I suppose they're pink flowers, is the best way to describe them, and they look rather untidy. But one of my favourite flowers, and it's called Red Ragged Robin. What a lovely name, and obviously ragged because of the shape of the flower head. If we walk on a little bit more, I hardly dare go down my hands and knees because we're virtually in water here. Look, another little shake up and down. You can feel the tremors, or I can.
Shaking all over.
Here we
He's
are.
going down on his knees nonetheless.
Look at this.
Lovely.
Hugely finely divided petals, the whole flower head.
Straggly looking.
Yes, it does, but it's got a kind of magical beauty to it, and it really only grows on the edges of rivers, reservoirs, really damp, soaked areas like this. Very low fertility. It's quite tolerant of acid conditions, which we have here, and the soil is anaerobic because it's continually waterlogged. Beautiful plant. I first came across it at college at Easton, Norfolk Agricultural College, and there's a field there sloping really quite violently down to the River Yare, which flows through that part of Norwich. And at the bottom of this hill, it's called the Hangings. Don't know how that field or area got its name. This plant was growing there, and that's the first time I came across it. I was about 17, 18 years old, and there were some white ones there. And much later on, I started doing research for, just to learn more about wildflowers at the local library. That was in Norwich, and I'd been given special permission by the librarian to visit special parts of the library where old wildflower books were. And I still smile to this day. I think Rat has found something in the brambles behind us, right where that bog is. So he'd either got himself stuck or he's found something nice to smell. And I keep hearing odd barks in the background. Anyway, in Norwich City Library, before it got burnt down completely, these very old books. There was one called Gladstone's Britannicum, and I was given permission to look at it. I had to wear little cotton gloves to turn the pages because it's such a precious item. And there I found Red Ragged Robin, and next to it, sort of almost an addition to the description of where the plant grew, what it looked like, and a beautiful hand drawing was an addition, White Red Ragged Robin. And I still remember it to this day, and I've taken photocopies of the page, or rather the librarian did, so I've got a copy of that book that sadly got destroyed, it got burnt down. And there are white ragged robins as well, but they're quite scarce, just like many plants and flowers. Occasionally we get white poppies on the farm, and they're really scarce, but nevertheless, whether it's a white red ragged robin or this beautiful pink colour, I love them to bits, and I think you can see there's a certain majesty in them because nothing else can grow here really. There's a few species of mint, there's meadowsweet coming up over there, which also likes its feet in water, really rich menthol scent to the leaves. If I pick this one up, it's going to be a tall plant. It will grow up in about 3 weeks' time. Just pick the top of one of the leaves off and give it a good rub in the hand like this, and then you can smell a kind of menthol smell. Yes. I can see another one which will come into flower again in about a fortnight's time, just tarring up through the rushes and sedges here. Just take one of the leaves off, give that one a vigorous rub. And
I can smell it from here.
Can you?
Wow. Oh, yeah. Oh.
Water mint, Mentha aquatica. And all round us are sedges and rushes, and they'll all be up 2 metres high perhaps, and so it's a delightful area. It's an area that can't be farmed. You could drain it, but it would wreck the sort of habitat that's here. It would run land drains across, and that, of course, that's happened to many marshy areas right across East Anglia, particularly close to where we are in the Yare Valley.
So this is really precious here, isn't
Absolutely.
it? And actually all too precious now.
Yes, and becoming increasingly scarce with pollution and the pressure on the land in all over the UK really is growing and growing and growing. So it's as long as I'm here, this will stay here like this with these glorious, quite scarce wildflowers now. So there we are, a proper introduction to Red Ragged Robin. I love it.
See, he's not going to drain this, even though he's got an antique tractor.
Yes.
Waiting for restoration.
It's exactly that. Goodness knows what it's like. It could actually be quite in good condition, but it's how you get it out. I do know exactly where it is, and it's very close to where that miscreant terrier's barking.
Where is he?
I don't know where he is.
Anyway, the Red Ragged Robin.
Ragged Robin, yes.
Around the rocks, the ragged rascal ran.
Oh, very good, very droll. Yes, and all the thistles have, of course, got static bumblebees on the top. That's a white-tailed bumblebee. It's so cold. Despite that, this queen, no, it's not a queen, it's pretty large, it's getting up towards the end of their season. It's feeding very slowly on the thistle head. You notice, if you look closely, it's covered in fur. And that means it can work at a temperature where honeybees can't. Honeybees get going at about 12 degrees C onwards, and it's probably about 8, 9 here at the minute. Pretty chilly, pretty overcast, very wet, but nevertheless, look at that, working away like a Trojan.
I think Rat's enjoying himself, Chris. We can just see where he is, but we can't see him. You better explain.
Matthew, this is an area I brought you to just a few years ago, and it was a plain arable field. In fact, it was a field of stubble, and I had given up. We'd had a few really hot summers. It's south facing, It's sharp, gravelly sand, and I know you would like to plant a vineyard on it, but Skinner here loves wildflowers. Oh, Rat's appeared. I'll explain that we're looking at 10 acres of wildflowers in full flower, and it's almost blinding. The oxeye daisies are out, Viper's bugloss just peering out of the top like tall blue lupins, little patches of them from last year where each plant grew, and obviously they like it here. So instead of one, there's 20 there, there's a dozen in front of us. Beautiful plants.
It's just acre upon acre of white. It's
Yes.
like you've had a frost.
It does, yes, and as you go down the hill further towards the bottom of the valley that's way in front of us there, it changes from the white to pink because there's sandfoin down there. The pH is high down, lower down the slope and quite low at the top here. So we've got two distinct soil types, and just amuses me. I used to have to farm this and scratch my head because you'd have shiny clay soil down halfway down the hill and then gravel sand just where we are. So amazing, and drought stricken beyond belief, the soil. And here's a drought tolerant plant. This is called alfalfa or lucerne, and it's just coming into flower. So we've got a little path in front of us. We can just walk in a little bit, and I'll see if I can pick some of the different species out as we walk through. So a whole variety. There's Rat's turned round and folded a bit over perfectly for us. Here's yellow rattle.
Yes.
And that's the parasite plant. Now, if you look in the bottom, we look down to the ground past this unbelievable display of oxeye
'Cause
daisy.
the daisies are all up above knee high,
Yes,
up to waist high.
They are. And can you see virtually no grass? A little bit of clover there. And the reason is the yellow rattle. It's parasitised, and there's a lot of it once you can look through the side of the oxeye daisy display. And daisy is lovely because you ask a child to draw a picture of the sun, this is what they draw: the yellow centre with all the little rays coming off. And of course, day's eye, when you think about the word, day's eye is the sun, the day's eye. So there we are.
You've just got the odd million here, haven't you?
The odd million, yes. If I had a penny for each one, I'd be quite a wealthy man, I think. So let's just walk on a little bit further, and as we start to descend the slope, we should come across some different species here. More yellow rattle. Rat, you'll have to get out of the way. It's so dense, he's having a job actually strolling through. More alfalfa. This is grown quite widely as a fodder crop for livestock. It's really high protein and suits a lot of our bovine species as well as horses as well. It can be cut and dried or baled as haylage, and it's a really very, very valuable fodder plant, as is the sandfoin, which we'll come to as we go over the crest of this hill now down towards the valley.
Once again, Rat is just about visible by his tail and the movement of these oxeye daisies. There's not much wind today. I would imagine it's quite a sight when this is all just whipping around in the wind.
Yes, yep, and I can see as we're walking through. This is interesting. There's a bee here. I should have brought one of our questions. That's a honeybee, and it's actually working. And the interesting thing is the pollen is... Rat's decided to walk right past the daisy we were looking at. It's flown off, that bee, but the pollen, although the centre of the daisy is bright yellow, the pollen-bearing plant, part of the plant, the pollen is blood red. And that bee looked as though it had some terrible accident on its pollen baskets each side, because it collects the pollen with its mouth and transfers it to the hind legs, and then carries this load of pollen, because there's not much nectar from here today, it's so cool, takes that back to the hive. It's a lovely sight. Beautiful.
Is that the
Viper's bugloss,
Yes.
and sandfoin growing together there.
The blue and the pinky red.
Yes, and the sainfoin is now going to take over. So if I brought you back here in 2 weeks' time, the white will pretty much be gone and it will be transferred to pink. And there's a huge volume of sainfoin in it. And that's another one of those deep-rooted leguminous plants which can stand dry weather sort of week after week because it goes down so deep. And again, it's a useful fodder plant. So, walk on a little bit more.
That's keeping pace with us.
Start to see some different ones coming here.
What's this very fine filaments of leaves?
Yes. Oh, this one is not quite in flower yet. It's a flat-topped flower. It's called yarrow, and it's got a really interesting scientific name, Achilles milfolium. And I won't take a leaf off, but if I go low down in the crop, you can see one of the leaves, and it's hugely divided. It looks almost like a fern leaf, and there's lots of leaves, and then it throws up these stalks with a flat white flower head on the top. Absolutely loved by moths and hoverflies as well. And there's that one of these honeybees. Oh, it's just flitted past and disappeared. I was going to show you the bright red pollen baskets.
Ladybird on the yarrow.
On the top of the yarrow. So there it is, yarrow, Achilles milfolium. Really another one, drought tolerant soil, very, very deep rooted. And Achilles, the Greek warrior hero, discovered it contained a lot of iron, and he used it to heal wounds on his soldiers, iron made with swords, and it was reputed to have very good healing properties. So yes, quite a bit of history. And the plant I was going to show you is this, which is bright yellow in the understory, and that's bird's foot trefoil. And once it's finished flowering, the little seed heads look exactly like a bird's foot, complete with the little claws on them, and really lovely to see. I've just spotted another honeybee over here. Oh, that was Rat. He got under my feet. I couldn't actually see him. I trod on my own dog, and he scared that one off. You wait till I catch him, except I can't see him now.
He says that's revenge for not looking where you're going. No, he's all right. He's scampering about.
Tell you what, that'll stop him being any trouble. I picked him up.
On we go. There's a definite change in colour on this field as the soil type changes.
Exactly so. Lots of people walking on one of the permissive paths at the bottom of this field. There's a good 7 or 8, 9 people there, and the car park where you can park for free at the top of the hill. Lots of cars up there at the moment.
Are you going to cut a walkway through here at any stage?
Yeah, just walk on a little bit more, Matthew. The answer is yes, according to Rat.
He's seen those people. Rat doesn't like to share it with anyone.
As if by magic, Matthew, this is the line that divides the sandy gravel soil from... I think it's a good idea if I pick this miscreant terrier up.
Come on, Rat.
Rat, behave. He senses that he can't see them, but he can sense the people walking around the bottom of the
8
hill.
or 9 walkers in their colourful cagoules, just in case it rains.
Yeah, and they're quite wise as well. That's enough. Quiet. So, sainfoin on our right and oxeye daisy on our left. And that's the demarcation of the soil type. It's nothing I've done any differently. The walkers who walk through the farm all contributed to supplying the wildflower seed that I put on here about 5 years ago now. Just let me pick him up. Can I pick you up? Right. And now, my hand on his muzzle, very gently, you understand. And if you're any trouble, Gudgeon, you'll get the same treatment if you talk too much. So you can see how just the soil influences everything that's growing above it, whether it's acid or alkaline. And then the alfalfa, or the lucerne, is just coming into flower. Now, I'm sure that you don't, and neither do I, but if you go to very expensive restaurants, this gets served on your plate, which is the flower of the alfalfa. It's a beautiful deep purple.
And entirely edible.
And very edible, and quite tasty. It's got a kind of nut taste to it, and it adds a lot of cost to the meal. Probably not much nutrition, but if you're in expensive restaurants, this is now a great favourite. So there we are.
But it's egg and chips for us most days, isn't it?
Probably. Well, that's if you're lucky. I do bread and cheese.
Yes,
Look at this as well. A different species, going to be quite tall. It's a white version of a flower that's normally pink. In fact, it has two distinct colour modes. It's called campion. This is white campion. Again, we looked at that oxeye daisy. That also has very deeply clefted flowers, called campion because in village games years and years ago, the winners of the games had a garland put round their neck made of this tall flower. So they were the champions. That's where the word has come from. So just love a little bit of history.
I think these derivations are fantastic, aren't they? And it shows how in touch people were many years ago in the countryside with their surroundings and the nature.
And nature and the plants that they could use for healing as well, like we looked at yarrow just now, Achilles milfolium, used as a medicinal plant and is still used today. Lots of people walking past just enjoying. And if we walk down just a fraction more, we'll be able to get to the spot where anybody listening could walk on. And I heard we got sworn at just now. I don't know if you were aware. Not by rat, but by a roe deer that just scarpered off through the other side of the field.
Oh, this is great cover in here for them, isn't it?
Yes, perfect. And you can see different set of flowers now. The oxeye daisy are fading away, and it's more predominance of yellow rattle in the understory. And all rats barking at, here we come to the path through the wildflowers, all he's barking at is a sign telling us all about yellow rattle. There we are, a perfect little footpath cut through, and lovely selection of the flowers. And look there, should we gather some of that alfalfa and see if we can sell it at the local restaurant so they can double the prices?
Do you think they want it at Kentucky Fried Chicken?
I'm not sure about that. Other chicken places are available, but that's one that springs to mind. And you can see there's a purple hue as well here, which is these tall grasses now coming into flower, and there's a whole succession of those, Matthew, over the coming weeks. And when you see just a field of that, it looks as though it is covered in fog or mist. It's got a lovely name, tall species of grass, Yorkshire fog. Love it.
Wonderful to look at this, your newest wildflower meadow, which is only a few years in the making, and it seems like it's never been away.
I know. Yes, it probably was here centuries ago, just like this, and because there's more and more people, we've reclaimed much of the woodland which covered the British Isles, and then the Industrial Revolution, and a whole succession of kind of war on the natural environment, and the Norfolk motto is to do different, and that's why this farm celebrates the predators and the prey and all the different plants that like to call this their home. On my lap. Here, come here. On my lap, here. Come here, I know what you like.
Well, it's raining, so we've nipped into the farm van to have a look at some of your emails for this week. And Julie Wilkins has sent a message. Hi everyone, just wanted to say thank you for the quick delivery of my tote bag, which I received this morning. Yes, you've got special tote bags, haven't you, Chris?
Yes, on offer for that kind of advertise the podcast and raise a few funds for the production team. Brilliant. I've used mine already in the local supermarket and got lots of comments.
Julie is a fan of Rat the Terrible Terrier.
Well, she'll be spoilt this week. He's all yours, and he'll come with £5 tucked in his collar.
William Osborne says, we did a night hike around High Ash last night, enjoyed all of the lovely foxgloves. We did wonder with some of those 6 to 8 foot tall plants just how old they are. Our little hiking group can't get enough of the farm. We regularly say cheers to you at the end of a hike and the wilding work and conservation efforts, and we really appreciate the well-kept walking paths, says William.
Yes, they're all beautifully mown, so you can't go wrong. And a question about the foxgloves, they're biennials, and the ones that are in flower this year are all exactly the same age. And it just goes to show you, like if you plant an area of woodland, there'll be 1 or 2 of the trees in the woodland that go right out over the top of the others, just because they've found something in the soil that they like. Foxgloves are exactly the same. Look, you've got a roe deer running past the truck, showing its white bottom, and it's a doe. So something's scared it out. Big ears, and it stopped about 50 yards ahead, and it's showing its pure white bottom, so that if other deer are frightened as well, they've got that to follow. Oh, wow, you couldn't make it up. What about that?
She's bounded across quite a large field in just a few seconds flat.
Yes,
though.
I'm that quick as well, Matthew.
Oh, I know, yes, when it comes to paying for the next round.
No. No, when it comes to tea time.
Patricia, hello, Patricia Monkman. Patricia sends us a picture of an insect on a flower. A real close-up shot, this. Hi, Chris, please could you identify this insect that frequents our garden?
Wow, yes, and it's a super shot. When I first looked at it, I thought it was a very quick look before I answer and go through the questions properly. It looked like a dung fly. And one of those ones that you see on the horse poo on the fields or cattle poo. And I think it was William Ogden that did a little poem on flies. God invented the fly and then forgot to tell us why, or something. It's God in his wisdom invented the fly and then forgot to tell us why. So I think it's lovely. I've had a close look, and it's one of the species of mason bees at the farm. It's got a furry body, which shows more or less closely what it is, but there are over 200 species of solitary bees in the UK, and that's one of the commonest ones, and that's the one that fills in little holes and cavities in walls with mud and puts pollen and nectar in the hole and an egg as well, and then seals it over with mud and carries on and like that. So well done, fantastic shot. So you got one of the species of mason bees.
Julian Lawrence, who lives in Suffolk, says, great podcast on orchids and the wildflowers, which we enjoy looking at and see again soon. This led me to an email that I've sent because we were walking locally Sunday and came across more than 100 orchids, mainly bee orchids, but the odd pyramidal. We saw both last week, didn't we, Chris? And that alone was stunning, but there were lots of white bee orchids, and we've never seen them before. Have you, Chris?
I've never seen one.
Oh, here are some photos.
There's a fantastic picture of one, and it can be nothing else. It looks like a bee with pure white wings, and instead of the body being that dark purple colour we saw on the bee orchids here at High Ash Farm last week's podcast, the body is a sort of yellowy colour, mustardy colour, and it almost looks like an albino version, but because there's some colour on the orchid, it is a white orchid. Just as we mentioned, the red ragged robin has a cousin as well, which is pure white as well, and the same with the campions.
Now, Kerry has sent this. I would be grateful if you had the time to answer my question. Each year I have a hornet's nest near the house. They are no problem, though it is a bit like a Hitchcock movie late evenings when the lights are on as all the hornets start hitting the windows to get to the light source. Oh dear. During the day, if they come into the house, I just open a window wider. Unfortunately, it appears that a hornet has decided a crack in the wall in a cavity area of the indoor conservatory is a good place to build its nest this year. I've blocked the area off with plastic and gaffer tape in the hope of stopping access, but I'm worried it'll find another way into the cavity. I don't want to kill it, it, but obviously I can't have a hornet's nest in the well-used conservatory. How big will the nest be at this time of year, and what are the chances of it just abandoning the nest if I make it difficult for him?
Right, the size of the nest at this time of the year being not much bigger than a golf ball. It's been a cold season to start off. Hornets get going a bit later than the common wasp. They're usually pretty tame, really. An elderly couple in the village had exactly that problem and had hornets in their porch, and I persuaded them, it took a bit of doing, to leave them over the summer, and they'd sit in the porch with the door open, and they were entertained all summer long, and it's one of the best experiences of their life. So one way of just helping, if you want, your situation, if you're a bit anxious about it, which I understand, is to make sure that the queen hornet is out, and then keep the door shut, gaffer tape the hole off, and hopefully, because it's a late season, she'll start nesting somewhere else more tolerable. But as far as hornets and wasps go, I'm very happy to have bedfellows of hornets, but not so the wasp.
Now, another winged friend, this time a bird, and Janet Raven has sent us an audio clip wanting you to help her out with an identification. So, first of all, let's hear it. The ducks at High Ash Farm going in to roost for an evening. Hey everyone, it's Matthew here, and if you've been enjoying our countryside podcasts, we've got a small favour to ask.
Yes, Matthew. What we're going to do is to ask for a small donation to help run the podcast, and any surplus goes for conservation at High Ash Farm here. And so it's really important. We'd both love to keep the podcast going, and that duck agrees with me, I think.
Well, it's straightforward to donate. You can make a one-off donation or set up a small monthly contribution, and the address is highashfarm.com/podcast.
We're hugely grateful for any support. It means we can keep sharing the stories of the countryside, which I love doing each week, but it's that small amount of cost we need to cover. So thank you very much in advance.
Janet says, please could you identify this sound? It's been bugging us for weeks. Could it be a siskin?
I would love it to have been a siskin, but immediately I heard the sound, and there's an awful lot of wind noise in there. You have to kind of pin your ears back to listen very carefully, and without doubt, I was 100% certain it was a male chaffinch on nest guard duty, and it will make that sound, and also has a song at this time of year, probably on second brood as well. The first brood will have fledged by now, and my son and Neil in the farm office yesterday morning didn't trust my knowledge on chaffinches, and Daniel played the sound to his computer. You can't make it up. And the computer on the screen came up, male chaffinch, and there was a cheer in the office from me.
Oh, the computer knew it as well.
The computer knew too.
Oh, wow.
So well done. And
you're going to be out of work soon.
Yes, exactly that. And that's what you call fieldcraft. It's very different to what you get off a screen.
Quite right. And just finally, we've had a note from our friends at Chatterbox, because this podcast goes out on Chatterbox, which is a talking newspaper for the blind. And Tim, who runs it, has passed this on to us from one of their listeners saying, I just wanted to say how fascinating Chris Skinner's countryside feature was the other week, and the description he gave of the bluebells was truly memorable. I say this as whilst growing up in the countryside in North Norfolk around the Holt area, I regularly spent a lot of time walking through the local woods, and at the time, back in the 80s, I was fortunate in still having some useful partial sight in one eye. The carpet of bluebells in the spring was just incredible, and I think I can also remember some faint scent as well. But I don't think Chris mentioned this. Well, there is a bit of a scent, isn't there?
There certainly is, and it's quite a heady aroma first thing in the morning with the damp, still air that you need. And of course, bluebells attract moths at night as well as a few butterflies and certainly bees during the daylight hours. They're well over the the seed pods are filling up, and we will do a visit back into the bluebell wood because they all get the attention when they're in flower. Many of our wildflowers do, and I'm interested in them all the year round. And it's quite fascinating to see the change in the bluebell structure now, with the bells hanging downwards when they're in flower and the seed pods vertical.
Email address chris@countrysidepodcast.co.uk. It's been terrific fun once again, Chris. I look forward to next week.
Yes, we did the trudge with Gudge, and you've still got mud on your boots, and you can't take that home with you because that's about £2,000 acre. That is.
You and your mud. What about your friend there? He seems quiet for the moment.
He is. Look at his feet. He's got to have a bath when he gets back. They're black. Look at him. He's meant to have white feet.
He's sulking now.
He is. He's in my arms, and I think he's drifting off to sleep. I think all these questions have been a bit too much for him.
This is a Soundyard production. Music is by Tom Harris.
Hello, it's Anna and Sophie from Soundyard here. Our new service, Spoken Stories, is an incredible experience where we record the stories and voice of your loved one, which you can then hold on to forever.
It makes for an incredible gift, and anyone can make one. Take a listen to this. It beautifully captures the thoughts and feelings of life from a 6-year-old's perspective.
I'm 6 years old and I love running around. I can run very, very fast, but I'm even faster on my bike. That's why I love biking. It makes me feel energetic. And also I bike loads of places. I like doing sports like dodgeball. The people that are in charge in the world, well, I think that there should be no one in charge at all. So everyone's in charge. So there's no person that's in charge. So everyone is it's a bit more free. That's what I think. Well, what I try to change at the moment is global warming. It's when us humans litter, destroy the planet and all its nature. That's global warming. It makes me feel sad. And also, if us humans keep doing that, it could destroy the whole planet Earth, and then all of the human beings will be destroyed. I try to stop global warming, and also in my coat pocket I have a bit of Kit Kat litter I found on the floor once. I love the planet more than anything. Grown-ups should be stopping global warming, because grown-ups are more powerful than kids. But if kids can be more powerful than grown-ups, kids and grown-ups can work together and do it. Kids should be able to do the same things as grown-ups. They should have more rights. Well, I love myself because that I believe in a lot of things. That's what I love about myself. I like being a kid, but because when I'm a grown up, I'm gonna have my own kids because that's what I want. And also, I'm a bit worried to have kids, and I'm still gonna be a kid for a long, long time. So I'm glad that's actually going to happen. I'm glad I'm going to stay a kid for a long time. I'm going to have kids because I want to know what it feels like to be a parent. I'm going to be a good parent.
Isn't that just gorgeous? If you'd like to find out more about recording a spoken story of your own, or you'd like to buy this as a present for someone, take a look at our website, www.soundyard.org/spoken stories, and take advantage of our introductory offer. Alternatively, you can get in touch via email hello@soundyard.org.
And if the internet isn't an option, you can leave a message with your details on our landline number. It's 01603 273 899, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.